Okay, so today we're talking about Coverage Advisor, Pathway's Coverage Advisor, and how to boost engagement with smarter emails. So the gist of it is we'll be going over Pathway's existing merge tag functionality and what you can do to customize the content in great detail in your emails. We'll be talking about old functionality as well as some newer functionality. So without further ado, let's get into it. Real quick overview of the agenda today. So we're going through the features, we'll dive into the demo, go over what you can do, and then discuss next steps. I would advise you to take notes in terms of what you'd like to be doing with your account after this webinar, so that you can mention it to your CSM, so you can mention it to myself, so that we can help you put what you've seen today in practice. Okay, it'll be pretty feature dense, so you might not have time to write it all down. Maybe grab some screenshots as well, or take a look at the recording after we're done. Okay, real quick again. So what is Coverage Advisor? Where is this in your Pathway account? So Coverage Advisor is not a separate product. It's not an upsell in that sense. It's part of our marketing automation platform. It's core functionality. So if you're able to send emails, you're able to use Coverage Advisor. And if you have our forms product, you can also use it in your surveys, in our form builder questionnaires. There's a lot that it can do, and I'll get into that in the next slides. In terms of why is this important, without belaboring the point, I'm sure you understand the importance of this as well in the emails that you receive. A lot of customers will only engage with personalized emails because they look more legitimate. They look like somebody spent time choosing them and crafting the email for them. Marketers will attribute targeted personalization as the reason for increased customer engagement. So both ends of the pipe agree that it's important. And also you can use this in your subject lines to increase the open rates as well, without taking more time to handcraft every single email that goes out. And I'll show you how. So let's start with some of the easier functionality. Basic in the sense that it's straightforward, that it's not as complex, that it's something that you would expect from a system. So you can put in recipient info, like their name, their city, any contact information that you have on the contact file synced to Pathway. You can put in the assigned staff. So if you're in Canada, you can put in their assigned CSR or their assigned producer from your BMS in the email content. You can sign those people, you can send as those people. And if you're in the UK, you can use account handlers and account execs. You can even use introducers with some additional setup as well. This helps keep it personal, especially if you have a large book of business and a big team. You don't want to have dozens of separate workflows for each team member. You want to be able to send out a single blast and have it properly signed by each assigned CSR, so that the customer sees a familiar name. You can do the usual, so policy information, quote, coverage details, opportunities, just about anything that we can get from your particular BMS, you can put in the email content. If you're not sure, feel free to ask. We'll go over the questions as well at the end of the webinar. And if it's not something we currently have, maybe it's something we can add down the road. But policy info, we consider straightforward to add, like the policy type, the effective date, the renewal date, etc. Also very important for billing reminders or late payment notices, the customer's outstanding balance, their next invoice date, their next invoice amount. Again, if your BMS supports this. And any custom field that we're getting from the BMS, anything that you've seen in the filters, you most likely can get in the merge tags as well. So if we're mapping something custom for you, or you have a report question in your BMS or an agency-defined category in another type of BMS, and we're mapping these, you can use these in the content as well. Now let's get into some of the more less straightforward options. Probably also less used, but maybe it sparks some ideas for a future campaign. So we've recently expanded some of our premium merge tag functionality. You were always able to put lists the annual premium in the email if you needed to. You're able to put in a calculated premium. So if the client has 3 policies and they're all renewing at the same time, so that email is about those 3 policies, you can put in individual premiums, but you can also put in a sum of those premiums. And this also applies to the next withdrawal amounts as well as the outstanding balances on the policies or the account level. So you can do all these. And we've started toying around with the idea of doing math on our side with the merge tags as well. So we recently had a request where we're not showing the premium, we're dividing the premium by 12 and we're multiplying it by, we're increasing it by 13%. So we're basically getting their monthly premium cost for the customer. So if that's something that you'd like to see in your emails, maybe with different numbers, let us know. We've done it once, so that means we can do it again. We've added policy count merge tags. This was useful for a client of ours that needed this on an outside system. And I'll talk a bit how that can be leveraged. If you don't want to put in like the VIN number in the vehicle, which is a legitimate concern, or even the policy number, most of our sensitive merge tags have a censored version as well. So instead of like license numbers, VIN numbers, policy numbers, you can put in the censored version, which will then just display perhaps the last few characters or the first character in the last few characters in a sort of safer fashion in the email content itself. Besides the policy-related data, the customer-related data, there is Pathway functionality that uses merge tags under the hood, even though you might have not seen that merge tag, like the unsubscribe link. So anything that we're already doing, you can use somewhere else in the email. So if you have a campaign where you want them to be very aware that they can unsubscribe from those marketing emails, you can put the unsubscribe link in a button higher in the email instead of just having it in the footer. The same way you can have the web version link and everything else that Pathway generates. If you have a timed campaign, you can put in one of our dynamic merge tags that does not render a fixed date, but instead renders a date based on when the email was sent. So you can always have it dynamically show 30 days later. This isn't important if you're doing a manual blast, right? So if you're sending a one-off email to everyone, you can put in January 7th with no issue. But if you're doing an automated campaign, so emails are going out every day, you don't want to have to go in and update the dates manually every day just to keep it accurate. So instead of you use our merge tag and it'll just render the date for you. And something that you can use, something that you can do with all of this functionality is you can do custom links. So we've had this come up a few times. If you have another system, another web portal that could benefit from additional data coming from a Pathway email, you can put in merge tags into the link to that system. So maybe it's a custom portal that could leverage the number of policies and render a different piece of information on the page. Maybe it's your quote page and you want to dynamically pick which line of business code they land on. You can do that with a merge tag in a link from Pathway. Or perhaps you have the lookup code or the account number for the client and you want them, you want some info pre-filled once they land on a certain page, you can do that. And another sort of freebie, it can help with tracking. So if you use something like Google Analytics on your website, you could put in the customer code, the lookup code, which isn't sensitive information. You can put that in a link, maybe in a UTM parameter. So when they land on your website, you can actually know exactly who it was on your website. You can always get a list of clicks from Pathway, but this way you can have them show up in your Google Analytics and you can track them through your website, which from what I hear can be pretty useful. There's a lot more you can do there, but let's not make this longer than it should be. And there's a number of dynamic features that our coverage advisor supports and all the additional functionality supports, specific to policy information, coverage info, risk details, drivers, etc. So let's go over your options there. You can do conditional merge tags, which let you show or hide specific content based on a client having a specific type of policy or not having a specific line of coverage, or having a liability limit that's above 1 million or below 2 million or 0. So you can do a lot of different things there. And I'll show you some practical examples that we've seen as well. You can use our merge tags to list out customers' data. You can do this in a few ways. I'll show you all of the ways in the live demo, but you can do a simple list where you're just separating them by a comma or by a new line. So they're all just broken into separate lines. And basically just list those out so that the customer can confirm that you have accurate information on file. Our merge tag tables are something that we released earlier this year, I believe. They're a better structured way of listing out the data. There's a few options there, so we'll see that on the live demo. Also, something we launched this year is our if-else logic block functionality for merge tags. So instead of doing like simple conditional merge tags, you can have large blocks of text wrapped up in logic, so a similar way that code might be, and which lets you visualize the end result better. You can use this in a survey as well, or the email itself, or even an SMS, and I'll show you a couple of useful examples there too. So a lot of what we talked about, just a couple of examples before we dive into the demo. On this screen, so on the left, we have the content from an email itself, the email editor specifically, showing in the little blue block conditional merge tags, and these are meant to render out a specific paragraph or specific bullet point if the customer does not have accident benefits, comprehensive coverage, or direct damage coverage, or maybe you want to do cyber or the DNO or whatever is in your data. So keep that in mind while I'm showing you this. A lot of this might lean towards auto, but it's not limited to auto. So whatever data we're getting in your Pathway account, you can most likely use here as well. So the way customers use this is they don't just put in accident benefits here. They actually put in a paragraph suggesting that they add accident benefits because it's important to do so for the additional coverage, et cetera, et cetera. So you're trying to upsell them in an email, and you can do this in a welcome email. You can do this on a renewal. It's up to you. And then, yeah, so you can use our vehicle description merge tag, and instead of doing individual merge tags like vehicle make, model, and year, you can use our shorthand description and just render the entire sort of vehicle description. And you can use all of this in surveys. So you can have it as part of a question. So the left is our editor, on the right is the end result in front of the customer. So you say, have you made any changes to your vehicle? And instead of just saying vehicle, you put in the actual vehicle that you have on file. You can then have sort of a mid piece of content where you list out the drivers, for example. This can be risk details, this can be coverage, vehicles, etc. But let's do drivers in this example. You can list those out, and then you ask the customer, is the above list of drivers accurate? You can do this with any sort of combination of merge tags, right? So we had the merge tag in the question, we had a merge tag in the content. You can also do merge tags in the answer options as well. So if you have the multiple drivers, you can list them out one by one. You probably have a better example in mind, but just as an idea, which of the following is your primary driver, or is the primary driver of this vehicle, etc. List them out, and they can submit this in the survey. You can even have like an other option if you need to. So everything else that we already have with our surveys. Okay, we're good for time so far. Let's dive into the live demo. Okay. So here I have my Pathway account. I have a group of workflows. I'm using the classic system just because testing some of this out is somewhat faster than in a big flow. But I have separate workflows for each of the types of merge tags. So let's dive into them. Let's look at a basic example. So this is, when I say basic, it's the basic set of features, right? So this is what you might see in a sort of a simpler setup of an email. You can use the custom field goes by, which looks something like this. You can put in your company as a merge tag into the email content. This might not make sense if you're a single office, but if you have multiple offices and they have different company names, you can instead use a branch office name here. We usually put these in our templates so that once you get this email, it'll just render whatever is in your Pathway account. You can then reference the policy number in the email itself, and you can use a good-looking line of business or policy type description. So let's see what that looks like in the preview. We have the policy number here. We have motorcycle insurance. ClearPath Insurance is the company. And I also get some billing details down here. Now, something interesting is happening in this example. I get the dates in French, and this is by design. It's just my campaign wasn't filtered properly. So this demo client is French. So the dates will render in French as well. I can have the annual premium, the next due amount, the next due date. And then on the bottom, I can have the assigned CSR information. Let's go back to the editor. So this was this section, billing details for policy number, effective or this effective date, and the individual fields. So premium, next withdrawal amount, next withdrawal date. We did not have a balance because they used our if block logic here. So we can say current outstanding balance or something like that, put that merge tag in, and we can wrap it in some logic so that it only renders this portion if the balance is populated and is not zero. So you don't have like empty portions of the email just because a piece of data is missing, or you're not mentioning the balance if their balance is zero. Going down, these are the staff fields you can use. Real quick, the staff merge fields being one of the more common types of merge fields you can get in our merge tag slider with a lot of the other info. So we have the goes by, we have the customer information, we have a lot of the policy information, brokerage information, etc. But since staff merge tags come in different combinations, you can use the staff on the client level, the staff assigned on the policy level, and then you can also choose between producer, CSR, or account handler and account exec. So let's build one out. We can say I want a CSR. The field I want to use is maybe their title. And I want it from the policy level. I can also do from the abeyance level. This is limited to certain BMSs, but you can use the staff assigned to the activity that's triggering the email. So let's say add title merge tag, but leave it blank if it's empty. So that gets put in the content. So now I'll get Mr. David or whoever. I also have a little schedule call button here. Let's look at that. So what I put in here is a custom field. You'll see the custom field in the Pathway staff list. There are two. The most common use case is going to be a scheduling link. So a unique scheduling link for each of your individual staff. You can put that in a link so that if I hit preview here, the link will actually go to a Calendly so that they can go and schedule with their assigned staff. So you can leverage the custom fields in Pathway that way. There are other ways, other things you can use the custom fields for, but that's one idea. So this was our basic example. I don't think we need to go too deep into how this looks like in practice beyond the original preview. So let's just move on to the coverage. We have more interesting examples coming up as well. So one of the screenshots I showed you in the slides was this one, conditional merge tags. So I can put in an additional merge tag here. I can say merge tag, we go to coverage advisor, we create a new merge tag, and we look for, we can do a lot of things here. So we can go insurance company, policy types, etc. But for this one, let's do coverage. I can do the individual coverages here, or I can focus on vehicle coverage. And let's say no on any vehicle. So that means a specific coverage is missing on any of the vehicles. Let's do TPL, which is third-party liability. Let's say you're missing third-party liability. I'll call it no TPL. You can call it something else. And we hit add and it shows up here. Now let's look at the preview. It's probably not going to be amazing because we're missing a bullet point. So here we have, here's what happened in this example, in this preview. It rendered out the second and the third, but also the fourth one. We didn't get the bullet points. I'm just gonna steal the bullet point from the previous one. I'm gonna go back to merge tags, back to the no TPL one. I'm just gonna paste the bullet point here, save it, and preview it. Yeah, could use a couple more spaces, but you get the idea. So now you have a dynamic sort of list, dynamic bullet point list. Something that I'd like you to keep in mind. So if you start seeing like gaps in the list, the way you get around that is by collapsing the merge tags, putting them next to each other, and then including a new line in the content. So then you have no gaps in your paragraphs or your bullet points. Okay. We have another type of merge tag here in the bottom section. So your coverage highlights for vehicle description, we've seen this one before, but we can also do specific coverage items. So your comprehensive premium looks like, the merge tag looks like this. So we need the code and we need the field. In your medical expense limit, again, we need the code and we need the field liability limit. And then we can also list them out one by one. Let's look at the preview. So this is what it looks like. In this case, in this particular example, I'm not getting anything, but we'll see this through dispatch. I'll talk about that in a bit. And we have a full list of the coverage descriptions one by one. I also have the customer code just for testing purposes here. Let's go back. So what I like to talk about, the preview from the email editor is a bit hit and miss depending on which merge tags you're using. So it'll try and grab the first client, the first policy it sees. It doesn't know what you're trying to do or which policy you're trying to do it with. So what we do in this case to get a more realistic preview, we save, we activate the email. I've already set it so it requires approval. It's not going to go out. We navigate to dispatch, and I can find, yep, we're looking at the basic flows. We go to the right, to the end to see these ones, and I can hit preview and see what one of these looks like. Maybe not the most amazing example, but here we have a more realistic situation. So this is based on the policy that's triggering this specific email. So that's also something that's useful to know. We do have merge tags that let you list out all of the vehicles and all of the property on a client, which might be useful in some cases. But for the most part, our emails are going to render merge tags based on what triggered the email. So if the client has 5 policies and your current campaign is just for an auto policy, then the auto policy is the one that's going to render in the merge tags as well. This goes, the same thing goes for the lower level details, like the vehicles and the properties. So if you're filtering out older vehicles, they're not going to show up in the merge tags either. So that's what this might look like. Let's go back. Let's look at another example. We're doing okay for time. We might want to speed up a little bit. Advanced. So I mentioned this real quick. Let's look at what this looks like in the editor. So I talked about our custom links. So here's one. We have our dynamic 30-day after link merge tag. I can preview it, and it'll say January 3rd, 2025. So you know when this webinar was recorded. The rest of these are also custom. So this is our unsubscribe link put into the content of the email instead of the footer. This is a custom portal button that includes the lookup code of the client. So if I go here, I'm basically just using the merge tags that I already know how to use in the email content. I just copy them here. So I have the customer code and I also have the policy number. So I can pipe that out to an outside page, maybe a quoting engine or something else. And the view in browser link as well. And some of the calculated merge tags too. So the ones I mentioned real quick, we can have the sum of outstanding balances or premiums, or we have a monthly indicative premium where we do some math behind the scenes on our end. If you have an idea for a new calculated merge tag where we do some of the calculations instead of the BMS, let us know. Okay, just going back, mindful of time. Policy block. This one, let's see what this one looks like in dispatch right away, because that's where it's going to look better. The policy block lets you render multiple policies in a single email dynamically without breaking the content. So it supports between 1 and 9 policies in a single email, and it'll break them out into separate rows. It'll look decent on mobile as well. And you can customize which exact merge tags show up in here. So the default is the line of business, policy number, and the effective date or the renewal date, I think. But you can replace that with something else. You can have premiums here. You can have the assigned CSR, whatever you need. So that's pretty typical setup if you don't want individual emails for every single policy that goes out, for every renewal that comes in. What does this look like in the editor real quick? It's this block on the left. So on the block list, there's multi-policy. This is what it looks like in the email. I can drop this in. Yep, and I get these. I can put in a different image here if I want to. I can put in different merge tags. I can add formatting, different font sizes, etc. But or I can just remove the image altogether. It'll work. So that's what that is. Going back. Here we have several options. So we have the if block, tables, and lists. Let's see what this looks like in the email editor. This is where it kind of gets noisy in the email editor, but just because it's very flexible. So here's our first block. It says, if the policy type is auto, and you can put in whatever line of business code you have, so cyber, home, commercial. If it's auto, render this piece of text. And I put it in blue just to differentiate easier later. And I can use merge tags within this as well. So it's not just a top level, a single level merge tags. You can have multiple levels here. And I have a separate block for home policies. I can have a separate block for high premium clients. So a policy with more than 10,000 premium. Maybe we offer them something, maybe we give them more information, maybe we give them a thank you. Also, you can do this for premium increases as well. So yes, you can trigger emails based off of a premium increase. You can filter your clients, but you can also just have it in the email content as well. Just something to keep in mind. And if you have custom fields, in this case, this is a report question, a contact level report question, which is basically a custom field. If it's a yes, again, render specific content. I can also just render the report question itself, but I can also use it as a condition. I can do this with agency defined categories, with custom fields, etc. And lower here, this is our merge tag table. So this one is going to list out all the policies. Let's see what this looks like when actually, I can just delete it and drop in a new one. So merge tag table, I drag and drop, put it in here. I choose the type, and I can do policy, vehicle, property, driver, etc. Let's do a policy list real quick. Let's do 4 columns. So effective date, renewal date, line of business, insure. Let's preview it. It might not render. I might have to go through dispatch, but I do have something. Okay. So I get the information here. And down here, I have a more noisy list, which we'll go through as well. I can do this for individual coverage too. So if I close this out, let's look at this. Why is this why does it have so much repeating information? So this is a vehicle coverage list. So instead of doing effective date, line of business, insure, I'm going to do description, liability limit, and maybe the vehicle description. Let's see what that gets us. Yeah. Depending on what your data looks like, it might break into multiple lines, but it'll render nicely. So I can list out all the individual coverages. And as you saw there, there's a lot of options. So if I go back to edit, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. You can see this in your email editor and you can play around with it as well. So I can do vehicle coverage. I can do a list of vehicles. I can do property. I can do drivers. So instead of doing a simple text list, I can do a table, and the table is going to render nicely. That's it for that one. Real quick mention for simple text emails. So we're mostly talking about emails in our email editor, but you can do simple text. You can do logic and merge tags in our simple text emails. So if you want something that looks very, let's say, down to earth, like it was sent manually, you can put in vehicle description, a list of vehicles, a policy number, the staff assigned. You can put all of these in the simple text email as well. And if I go in, let's see what this looks like in the design. I will say we're missing a better UI for merge tags. So you don't have the merge tag list available in the simple text, but it does support it. So you can even add formatting like I did for the staff name. Yeah, so you can do that. You can also preview here to review, but that's it. Just a quick mention, all the same applies there as well. And the last one, but not least, forms. So in this one, it's not so much about the email, it's about the survey. So I just have a link here. This is the merge tag that I get from our forms page when I created a survey. I put that merge tag in here, and that's gonna link to the survey, right? So let's just close this out. Let's get to an example from dispatch. I'm just gonna filter down. Let's say I just want forms. Okay, I might, yeah, I should have activated it first. So let's give it a minute to populate. Here it is. Let's see a preview. So from dispatch, I can get a real looking survey link. And my mistake, I should have showed you the email editor first, the form editor first, but let's follow along. So we had a logic block here to render this blue text out for an auto policy. So that's what it rendered. The vehicle list as well. I have the vehicle in the question that I mentioned on the slides. I have a list of drivers, and they can respond to that. And I can also pick a primary driver, and I can use any of the merge tags that I showed you, I can use in the survey as well. If I go into the survey builder, yeah, so here we are. In the first section, I actually had separate blocks for auto and home. In that example, the auto one rendered. The rest are straightforward. Again, the same merge tags that are in the email. You can't do the merge tag table here, but you can still do lists. So there are some limits. And another interesting piece, you can also combine these with the logic that the survey builder supports. So visible if a specific question, if the answer is equal to something. So again, depending on what the merge tag renders, this can get fairly complex. It's a bit out of scope for today's webinar, but just so you know that it's possible. That's about it. Let's go back to the slides. So let's blaze through an additional list of real world use cases, just so I'm not demoing them all. You can have a survey that says update your contact info, and you can list the info that you have on file at the moment and give them an option to fill a text field with the correct info. You can do a welcome workflow for introducing your CSRs, your producers, account handlers with their image as well and their Calendly links. You can do follow-ups like billing reminders, both SMS and email work, where you have different blocks of information for an agency bill policy versus a direct bill policy, or for different premium amounts, etc. You can render the balances individually or summed up. You can have a pre-renewal email that has a lot of information. It's not just it's time for renewal. It's actually, these are the vehicles we have on file. These are the drivers. These are the properties listed. This is the coverage. You can use our multi-policy block to render multiple policies in the same email, and instead of sending individual emails every time. You can use the coverage advisor for upselling. So if a client has certain coverage but lacks another kind of coverage, you can put in a blurb trying to upsell them. If they lack a certain policy type but have auto with you, you can suggest that they maybe get a combined policy with you that has some additional benefits or discounts. You can do different content for different liability limits, premiums, outstanding balances, etc. You can do, and we've seen this as well, you can do separate content for older vehicles. So maybe mention the benefits of insuring a newer vehicle. Maybe if they have a certain make of vehicle, you can warn them that it's prone to being stolen. I've seen some lists of top vehicles being stolen recently floating around. So you can do that as well. And you can also do this with premium increase, decrease by amount or percent in logic as well. Basically everything that we mentioned. And all the custom fields, just in short. So future plans. We want to add, again, conscious of time, we want to add more functionality to our if blocks so that you can do more interesting combinations of logic there. Right now, you can do single conditions, you can do math comparison, etc. But there's more we can do there. We want more calculated merge tags based on your feedback. So if there's something you'd like to do, let us know. We need a better UI for adding merge tags. We do have a slider. It's only in the email editor, which isn't ideal. So we're preparing better documentation, and we're also working on a floating slider that's available across Pathway. It's not there yet, but just so you know that it's coming. We want better support for this same setup and the custom actions that you do in your flows. Most of these are supported there. There are some tweaks needed though. This is more of sort of a mapping or a sync thing where we're looking at adding rating information for vehicles and property from the individual BMS syncs, and by extension to the filters, and by extension to the merge tags as well. So that's coming soon as well. And whatever else you think of. So don't be shy. Let us know what you'd like to do with Pathway. Next steps. If you have one of our email plans, so connection bot, marketing automation, any of the legacy plans, and you're able to send an email, you have access to this. If you have the old form builder plan that's now called Forms, you have access to this in your forms. So there's nothing else you need to do if you already have a Pathway account. If you don't, reach out. I would suggest you write down what you're trying to do and tell your CSM, and let's make it happen. That's it for the presentation. Let's see. Let's give you a few minutes for QA. Otherwise, I think we covered a lot. It's going to make for a useful recording as well. Also, a reminder, we have a YouTube channel. If you type in PathwayPort YouTube, you can find our previous webinars. And you can review them too. This one will be available there as well once we went through and maybe trimmed it down a little bit. Okay. I guess we were pretty thorough. Okay. Tom says, thanks, giving me ideas for better marketing. I'm glad, Tom. Thank you for letting me know. Great. Okay. Jason asks, can you trigger a campaign based on a change to marital status field? Ooh, good question. We could. I'm trying to think of if the driver marital status is in the filters right now, but I know we get this from the BMS. So although you might not see it right now in the Pathway account, it is something we could do if it's useful for your team. So just gonna put a pin in that and go back to the team after this. Thank you for the question. Yeah. So as I mentioned, most of what you can do in the filters, you can probably use in the merge tags and vice versa. Or if you can't, then it's just a matter of time. While I give you a couple more minutes for the questions, we spent a lot of time adding new merge tags into the system, sort of on the back end, which is why you don't see them in the UI, which is why we're doing this webinar, just for the sake of time, development time. We will do a proper UI for them as well, and then you'll have them at your fingertips. In the meantime, we can give you a list, and our CSMs can help you craft these emails if we don't already have them as a template somewhere. Okay, I think we're pretty thorough. If a question comes up after, don't hesitate to ask. You can send me an email or send a Slack message to your CSM or myself. Thank you for joining the webinar, and I'll see you next time.